All right, this one's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully most of them are. But we're talking some hockey and also talking about the unlikely landing spot for Joey Vitale. St. Louis kid, went to CBC, played in the NHL, teammates with Sidney Crosby. And the career gets cut short because of a fight. He jumps in to defend a teammate, ends up with concussion problems, and the NHL career ends because of that, but no regrets, and now part of the Blues broadcast team. Some great stories, really great stories about the intensity, the drive of people that are champions, like a Sidney Crosby, but also about becoming the bread man. Yeah, you know, Joey Vitale likes to make his bread, talking about the great run with the Blues, and also what's it going to take to get them going again. Got to win some games up in the bubble here. Got to continue this, hopefully, extended playoff run. The Kilcoyne Conversation this week with Joey Vitale, our hockey guest. It's brought to you by Marie de Villa Senior Living, located at the intersection of Clayton and Weidman Road since 1960, the premier place for senior living. Get a virtual tour at mariedevilla.com. Also, Triad Bank started in St. Louis in 2005. So if you're a business owner trying to get things done, we know it's a crazy world right now. Make sure you check in with the folks, the decision makers, right here in St. Louis. Triad Bank in Frontenac on Clayton Road, 1 block west of Lindbergh. On the web, it's triadbanking.com. And Appliance Discounters, 5 area locations on the web, theappliancediscounters.com. Quite simply, the best names that you're thinking about appliances, the best names out there at the lowest prices. Theappliancediscounters.com. Our savings are your savings. And our good friends at B&G Tuck Pointing. You know all about their Blues passion. We tweeted that out. It was Bella and Gabrielle. They had the Blues flag. They were with their dad, Rich. They were on vacation, and they went to the beach and just put that baby, that flag, that Blues flag down on the beach. The Blues actually liked the tweet. So did Torrey Holt and Cam Jansen. Everybody having fun with it. But B&G Tuck Pointing, they're the best in the bricks. And what they do with the tuck pointing, waterproofing, they'll come in, replace the mortar, make those bricks look new again with B&G Tuck Pointing. Joey Vitale, our guest here on the Kilcoyne Conversation. It should be presented by CBC. If they had been given proper notice, they probably would sponsor this segment. A proud cadet, Blues broadcaster. And if I told Joey Vitale growing up in St. Louis that one day it would say Blues something, you might have guessed Blues player. In your wildest dreams, did you ever think you'd be interviewed as a Blues broadcaster?
Well, Martin, no. First of all, I didn't even know what a color analyst was when I was that age. Even when I was playing, you know, it's so funny. A lot of people think that players just assume they know all the roles and the nuts and bolts of an organization and how things work. But we didn't. You know, we just played the game. We knew that someone was calling the game. I certainly didn't know the roles of the color analysts and the play-by-play guys, and it really wasn't until I kind of dove into this process when Chris Kerber reached out to me that I kind of started seeing how this whole machine runs. But no, if you asked me that question years ago, I would A, have no idea what you're talking about, and B, would never have ever in a million years thought that that position would be for me years down the road.
Yeah, and I want to dig into that a little bit, how about this lucky bastard? He becomes the Blues radio guy. They win the Cup the first freaking year after 50 years. So we'll get into that. Let's start with Game 2, Friday night. We hate the phrase must win when we talk about sports. It's overused. But I think for a Blues team that hasn't won in a while, hasn't played great in a while, how pivotal do you see Friday night?
You know, it's pivotal, Martin, because this team as a whole, this group of players, coaches, they've never been down 2-0 in a series. So that to me is why I believe pivotal is a good word to use it. You know, I always depend on you for the right words and the right questions and how to orchestrate the words, because like Bernie Federico said to me last year, you of all people have the greatest questions. Make sure Frank Cusimano really understands that, Martin. But
I'm going to pull this. This is what's great. I'm pulling this clip. We're tweeting it out. And Frank and his Italian heritage be damned. The CBC bond is deeper. I'm sorry, Frank, but I was disappointed. My first question, I wanted Joey V to say, that's a great question.
Hey, CBC, what's the motto? Men for tomorrow, brothers for life. So,
Brothers for
yes,
life.
you're absolutely right about that. Martin, they've never been down to 0-2 in a series. You look at last year, look at the Western Conference Final, down by San Jose 1-0. That first game was not good. It was not good for the Blues, and I thought we were going to get swept. Down 1-0. Look at the Boston Stanley Cup Final. You go down 0-1 in that series too. I thought we were going to get swept. We had bad first games in the last 2 rounds of the playoffs last season. So to me, that's why I'm not necessarily worried about the Blues in this matchup against the Vancouver Canucks. But like you said, we've never been down 0-2. I don't know what that looks like. This is a tournament, and this is a playoff format, and Braden Shen said it best. For whatever reason, as a player right now, he said to us a week ago, you don't want to fall behind. He goes, it's hard to find momentum. It's hard to scratch and claw your way back into games for whatever reason. So it's going to be so important that they start early, get the lead, but even more important than that, that they can find a way to get a W, because an 0-2 hole in this playoff format is a lot more dire, I would say, than a typical playoff setting that we're so used to.
We always talk about star players and, so-and-so didn't do enough and they need their stars to be as big as they can be. But I just wonder for the Blues and the way they're set up, if not having a Barbashev and, Blais was out and then Steen's been out, if kind of the grinder mentality is, or the grinder line almost is missing right now, and there's some skill set for sure with these guys, but do you think those missing pieces are a big piece, part of what's not working?
I do. I think that's a big reason why the Blues kind of haven't discovered their identity right now. You look at last year and you look at this season. This fourth line was as valuable to this head coach as the first line was. I'm talking Sundqvist, Steen, and Barbashev. To this coach, that was a more solid line on most games than the Tarasenko, Shen, and Jaden Schwartz line. That's your top line. And it goes to show you that this coach loves one thing. His model was to run 4 lines. You want to run 4, run them deep, and run them all game long. When you do that, you spread minutes out. A fourth-line player and that kind of setup, Steen, on some given nights, would have 17 minutes of playing time. Look at a couple nights ago there, Martin, in that Game 1 versus Vancouver. You're looking at McEachran, who played, I think, about 6 minutes. Brouwer was a little shy of 6 maybe. But they're all right around that 6 mark. They're playing almost a third of what a fourth line was last season. Now, how does that have an effect on the team? Aside from getting momentum, aside from having this great line to start games, aside from having Barbashev going on over the boards and creating momentum in a game, you're not spreading the wealth of minutes. You got Ryan O'Reilly. He's eating up probably for 3 or 4 more minutes. You have Braden Shen is eating up maybe 6 more minutes on a typical night if you don't run that fourth line. And we all wonder why the Blues have had bad third periods. I mean, they've been outshot or outscored 0-9 in the 3 round robins in this first game of the first round. I mean, those are some alarming numbers. They have not scored a goal in the third period yet, and they have not looked very good in the third period. And I wonder if a lot of that has to do with not having Barbashev, not having Blais. Steen's been out. You don't have that fourth line, so Craig Berube cannot run 4 deep. And I think these Blues are getting a little worn down by these third periods.
And I heard you on 101 ESPN flagship station in St. Louis for Blues broadcast. And on the postgame, you and Chris Kerber are sort of chewing on everything that happened there. And you said, listen, these penalties are legit. It's the way they're calling it. Do they have to adapt a little bit? Are they calling it tighter? What have you seen so far in terms of the penalties? It's a tired refrain in the playoffs. Whatever fan base you are, you play, oh, man, stay out of the damn box. But for the Blues, that's been huge. Do you think the penalties are legit, and do they need to adapt?
I think the roughing in the first round has been much better than it was in the qualifying round and the round robin. A week ago, if you would have asked me that, Martin, I would have said something needs to be done. The referee council needs to get together, and they need to start working on putting these whistles away. A lot of ticky-tacky stuff. It just messed with the rhythm of the game. I prayed and I wished that playoff hockey wouldn't look like that. And a week later, going back to this week currently we're already a couple games in some series in this first round. I like where the reffing's at so far. They have put the whistles away a little bit. Now, they're not going to put them away completely. And I think to that point, you have to be a man if you're on this Blues team. Look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, were some of these legit calls? And I think they would be honest with themselves. I didn't think the refs called a terrible game a couple nights ago there in Game 1. I don't think so. I think there was stick infractions. There was a couple hooks, holes. McEachran interferes at a faceoff. I mean, these are penalties, right? The Blues, yes, you can look at the referees at times and say, yeah, that was a little weak. But at the same time, they got to get their feet moving, and they got to keep their sticks down. If they do those two things, they're going to cut, those 8 penalties or whatever it was into 4. Stay out of the box. I hate that term, and I'm not just saying that because you said it, but I hear it everywhere. The Blues can't stay out of the box. They're too physical. They're too aggressive. The style for which they play, they're going to get penalties. So for people to think, oh, they're back in the box, I guarantee you, Martin, game 2, they're going to get a penalty. It's just going to happen. It's part of the game. But the problem is when those penalties become 6, then 7, and then 8, and then you have 8 penalties, and then you're really starting to wear yourself down. The PK is wasting a lot of energy. But aside from that, there's such a ripple effect when you're killing 7, 8 penalties in a game. Guess who's not on the ice? Vladimir Tarasenko, your best goal scorer. David Perron with the hot stick. They're sitting on the bench watching your team kill a penalty, and that takes them out of the game. It takes them out of the rhythm of the game. So it's got such a negative ripple effect when you're taking that many in a row. Take 2, take 3, take 4 in a game. That's okay. It's going to happen, and you have a good kill. But when they start mounting up, that's when it proposes to become a very big problem for this team.
How hard is it to say, frick, it's, mid-August, we got a playoff game, and your mindset, they're normally fishing in Saskatchewan or wherever, and I know they've had a little adjustment period being in the bubble and time to get back to thinking hockey. I just think for a lot of these guys mentally, it's hard to get yourself there. Like, this is really the playoffs? Are we sure? It feels so fucking weird. Like, I just think a little bit in your brain, how hard do you think it is for them to flip this playoff switch and say, okay, this is the real deal, even though it feels really weird?
It's almost probably the most difficult thing I could imagine as a player. I'm not gonna sit here and say this is the most difficult thing that these players have ever deal with. I mean, there's major issues and major problems that happen in this world, and a lot of people have it way worse than these players. But from a hockey player standpoint, to play the sport of hockey, you have got to be so dialed in from the drop of the puck. Your nervous system has to be clicking on all cylinders in order to not only perform well, but just to stay in the game, just to compete. It's such a fast game. Things are happening at an incredible speed. The noise, the hitting, the goals, the drama, the stress of the coach yelling at you, the stress of the second coach yelling at you. I mean, Martin, it is a full-on shock mode. And for me, when I was playing, I know for these players, it's one thing to get into that mindset and that frame, that body frame, when you're showing up to the rink in March and the Masters are right around the corner and playoffs are coming. And the Enterprise Center, everyone outside the Enterprise Center is wearing their Blues jerseys and they're excited about the game. You show up for warm-ups. There's 18,000 people watching warm-ups for round 2. I mean, you feel the energy. You step on the ice for warm-ups. There's the fog. There's the music. There's the horn. And I'm getting chills just saying it because I know that's what the players feed off of to have the energy to perform at such a high level. Now look at this situation. I mean, guys, Martin, it's the freaking opposite. These guys are getting ready in tracksuits in their hotel. It's a very quiet, almost like a desert-like walk over to the rink. They're by themselves. They get to the locker room. Oh, it's quiet there. Then they get ready. They hop on for warm-ups. It's very quiet there, except for the noise of pucks hitting the glass. And then they're supposed to drop the puck and perform it at a high level. That's what these players are being asked to do. And not to mention, Martin, we can't forget about this too. The Blues just won. They just won the cup, right? You can't tell me that in human nature that's not going to have an effect on how a team is going to be hungry and perform. It's only natural. The thing right now is the Blues don't seem like themselves. Are they lacking hunger? Are they lacking desperation? Well, maybe a little bit. They just won the freaking cup. They've had a short off season. They jumped right into the next season, and they were in first place in the West. These guys are fucking tired. They're exhausted. It's natural. It's completely normal. But the challenge is going to be, how do you find it? How do you find it? And how do you match that desperation of the Vancouver Canucks? I'm watching this young team, and they're hungry. They're full of fire. They're full of zip. They're full of piss and vinegar, and they want to knock off the defending Stanley Cup champs. And every goal they score, they feel like they won the Stanley Cup. And that's what they are feeding themselves off of. Can the Blues match that? Can they get there? Can they find that zone? Is going to be the hugest, biggest question moving forward, starting with Game 2.
The best in the bricks. It's more than just a slogan. Why not make your home or garage or chimney look its best by fixing the bricks? That's what B&G Tuck Pointing can do for you. Bricks look their best with proper tuck pointing. Call Rich Galati and his team at 314-363-0525. And by team, of course, we include his daughters Bella and Gabrielle. Or go online, bgtuckpointing.com, a proud St. Louis-based company that supports the hometown St. Louis Blues. Yes, they love their hockey. Chimney repair, foundation repair, caulking, waterproofing. They do it all. Have you driven around St. Louis? We have a lot of brick buildings, and if they need repair, you know who to call. Consider me among the many satisfied customers. Call 363-0525, 363-0525, or go online, bgtuckpointing.com, and find out what it means to be the best in the bricks.
Yeah, it's got to be hard when you have won the cup and it's like, hey, we'll be fine. Because I keep thinking, hey, they'll be fine. And I'm sure that's kind of their mindset. But it makes you appreciate Michael Jordan, and everybody got into The Last Dance because we were in lockdown for a month. And a guy who wins one, then he wins two, then he wins three, and it's like, got to win another, got 4, 5, 6, like just so driven. Even highly competitive people that we're talking about at this level, it's got to be hard not to say, well, we just won. I mean, do you think somebody in the room even says, F last year? I mean, is it Berube says, quit thinking about last year, or does he even need to say that?
You know, I don't know if he has to say that with the leadership in this room, but I think it's a good message. And I think it's something that's probably already been said, Martin, given the entire time they've been up in this bubble. You know, we're talking already 5 games in, they're 0-5, and they're not looking all that good. I mean, at some point, someone would need to step up. And I'm looking at a Ryan O'Reilly who would do that. But, you know, Ryan O'Reilly's a player that, like you just mentioned, that last dance was fabulous. You think of players like Michael Jordan. I think of Ryan O'Reilly right alongside of him, the Wayne Gretzky's, the Jerry Rice's. You win, and there's that hunger just to do more. Like, what inspires that? Where does that come from? I don't relate to that. I'll be honest with you. Like, I played at a very nice level, and I'm very happy with where I played and I finished. But when the season was over, I shut off and I went on vacation and I took my time and it was what it was, right? And most players are like that. The rare ones make it to the top, and they have even hungrier aspirations moving forward. Martin, we were in Ottawa. I'll never forget this story, and this just sums up the kind of players that you and I are discussing right now. Sidney Crosby, my teammate for 5 years, we're in Ottawa. It's the morning skate. I think it was like in February. It was a cold, white, snowy. It always freaking snows in Ottawa. I've never seen the grass in Ottawa, and that's all I can remember. We're at the rink. It's a morning skate, and we're out in the hallway. Me and Robert Bortuzzo, the current Blues defenseman, we're doing this game. We always were looking for games to kill time because we're always at the rink, right? So we got a roll of tape, and we noticed in the ceiling in the hallway right outside the locker room, there was like this hook right on the ceiling, right? So it's about 10, 11 feet up in the air, and it's like this little J hook. And literally, we just started throwing this roll of tape up at this hook, and we bet each other $5 the first one to loop this roll of tape around this J hook 10 feet up in the air. So we started doing it, and then Matt Cook was seeing it, and then Marc-Andre Fleury, what are you guys doing? So everyone started doing it, and I remember Sidney Crosby watching. We were like, Sid, you want a shot? He's like, oof, I don't know. We're like, why? He goes, you know, once I get going on something, we all started laughing because that's his personality, right? Once he gets going on something, he won't stop until he gets it. Okay, so he grabs his tape. Finally, we egg him on. He didn't get it, Martin, probably for 20, 25 minutes. We're about to get on the ice, and he is still in the hallway trying to get this piece of tape, this roll of tape around this J-hook 10 foot up there. And he's like laser beam focused in on it. It was not even a joke for him. He could not walk away from it until he got that roll of tape around that J. It's the obsession. You have to be obsessed. You have to think on a completely different level that people just don't understand. That same player, Sidney Crosby, the year before that, we're at PNC Park. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's a beautiful park in Pittsburgh. I'm sure you have. You're a good CBC boy. You're well traveled. We're hitting home runs. We're taking batting practice. They invited the whole hockey team over there. We're all hitting them. I barely get out of the infield. God, I had such a huge respect for baseball players after that day. I could barely hit it out of the infield. And Sidney comes up and he hits and he hits and he hits. He hit one on the wall, and it was so close to going out. But in that moment, he realized he's not going to stop until he gets a home run. And you can look it up on YouTube. He hits a jack at PNC Park, right? And everyone thinks, oh, my God, what an incredible athlete. Yes, he's an incredible athlete. But what they didn't show was the fact that he took him 25, almost 30 minutes to do that, and he would not stop until he got that. And that is the mind frame of a player like Sidney Crosby. And then we are very blessed because I watched it and I see the same thing in Ryan O'Reilly. We have camp 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever it was at 17. These guys have been off for 4 months. Players on the ice. They're skating. It's a great practice. An hour and 45 minutes after the drop of the puck in practice, everyone's almost off. And Ryan O'Reilly with that grizzled beard is doing mountains. I'm talking Herb Brooks style. Blue line back, red line back. And he's just bagging himself. He is just driving himself into the ground. And that's that obsession, which I think really great leaders are born from. And the key really at the end of the day is, do they have the personality where they can continue to lead by that example and drag people into the fight? And I think that's what's very special about ROR here in St. Louis.
Those are great stories. You know, what makes people great. And I also have to give you an award because Panger mentions Gretzky within 60 seconds. I mean, you made it good. You didn't go Sidney Crosby for a good 5-10 minutes, so you win a special Panger award for that. And I always joke to people, who's in your phone? Is Sidney in your phone? And how often do you talk?
You know, Sidney and I probably talk, Martin, once every 2 months. And it's mostly through text messages. And it's simply because I understand just how busy he is. I mean, he's always getting hounded with everything. It's always a check-in. If he scores a great goal, I'll text him. Or if I find a great book. We had a thing in common when I was in Pittsburgh. We love Navy SEALs. We love like war movies and war documentaries. So whenever I came across this book the other day, Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. It's one of the New York Times bestsellers right now. So I was texting him about that. I was like, hey man, you got to check this book out. This David Goggins is a fucking animal. And so he said, dude, I've already read it, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So we exchanged back and forth. But listen, I know what the people want. I'm in this business. But the number one question I get from people in regards to hockey wasn't what was it like playing in the NHL? It wasn't how did you get to the NHL? It wasn't what was it like playing in the Eastern Conference Final? Nothing. It was like this question: what was it like playing with Sidney Crosby? It is the number one question, and I have so many great memories. So you can back the F off because I know what the people want, and I'm just trying to deliver. And bring it to the people.
Did you ever think, hey, if I don't get into that fight when I'm with Arizona, that maybe I'm still playing even in the league? I mean, people don't realize they knew you were at the NHL level, and we probably, to be candid, at Fox 2, if we see a local kid make it, we're looking for a goal, a highlight to put on the air. It's really cool. But people probably don't know the whole story. October 17th, 2015, you're in a fight against the Bruins, right? And you suffer a fractured orbital bone, which among all the injuries out there, and there's a lot of them. I was with your buddy Reed Lowe, he was telling me about his broken jaw and how they wired it. I'm like, oh, dear God. I got to think a fractured orbital bone is near the top of the worst injuries you could suffer. And if that moment doesn't happen, do you wonder, because it led to concussions and it shortened your career, do you ever think about that night?
I don't think about it all that often, and I think that it's just because – I just don't have regrets about it. I don't regret jumping in there and, Kevin Miller was going after our best player in Oliver Ekman-Larsson. And it was my job. It was my role. I couldn't really look at myself in the mirror if I didn't stand up and do that. And that's the emotions that I toiled with a lot, Martin, in games where I felt like I needed to fight. I mean, you're sitting on the bench, something happens in the game, and you feel the players like on your back. You feel the coach breathing down your neck. And you feel like you have to do something. Does anyone want to fight? I don't care what Cam Jansen or anyone says. I think they're lying. No one wants to fight. Jody Shelley, one of the toughest guys in the league, I ran into him. He's the color guy for Columbus. He goes, I hated fighting. I would never want to fight. Same thing with some of Steve McIntyre, one of the toughest guys I've ever played against. He hated fighting. You wrestle with it. You're on the bench and you're thinking, God. But my thing was always this. Am I going to be able to look myself in the mirror and be proud of my decision I'm about to make? Or am I going to feel like a coward? I'm only here doing this a short time, and pretty soon it's going to be over, whether through injury or I'm just not good enough anymore. What story do I want to tell my kids? That I did everything I could and I faced my fears and I fought these giants? Or do I want to say that I kind of turtled up and I got scared? So I always kind of looked with the end in mind, and that's how I approached that fight that night, was just that, you know what, you're coming after our best player. That's not cool, man. It's not cool. I was right there. I went after him. And this is before Kevin Miller really became known as a fighter. I mean, this is one of his first years, maybe one of his first fights. But, man, he tuned me up so good, and he broke my orbital bone. I fractured my skull, my temple, and he broke my jaw. And 3 punches, bam, 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 right at the end. And you know what? He could have kept going. About that fight, I watch it every now and then. He could have kept going. I would not go down. I could never go down. That was one thing about me. You had to knock me out for me to go down. But he knew something was wrong. He felt something when he punched me in those last 2-3 punches, that something wasn't right. My ears are ringing. I don't even know where I am. And he literally just stopped. And you know what, Martin? He could have killed me. He literally could have, because I don't know how many more I could have absorbed before I really, really would have got injured. And, I guess I'm at peace with it, and I don't have regrets about it, especially now. Kevin Miller and I have actually talked quite a bit since that incident. I was on Spittin' Chicklets last year, and we talked a lot about that fight. And Kevin Miller, being on the Boston Bruins, reached out to me and was like, "Hey, man, I just want to follow up with you." He texted me in the hotel or the hospital that night when it happened, but he followed up after that interview on the podcast. And when we got to talking, he's a Christian man. He's a dad. He's a father. He's an incredible father, incredible man. And he's dealing with a lot of injuries himself right now, but he's just a very inspirational person. I mean, he's just a really deeply valued, full of character individual. And we connect on the religious background. We connect on a lot of character background. I mean, we kind of hit it off. And I think that it kind of goes to show you that, yes, we're out there, we're playing a game, and we're trying to do the best we can. But at the end of the day, we're all humans, and we have emotion, and no one ever wants to see anyone else get hurt. But that to me is probably why I probably have a lot of closure with the whole incident and how it went down.
You love sports? Sure. But what you really love is a winning team and a great story. That's exactly what you get with Appliance Discounters. It started with just 3 employees. 1 location, 3 employees. Denise Bradley, her husband John, her brother Tony. That's it. More than a decade ago. And for years, you've heard me talking about them. Here's why. My dishwasher, it's a Bosch, the quietest dishwasher on the market. Remember Grandma's dishwasher always, That's not what's going on with us. We got it at Appliance Discounters. Our washer, our dryer, our stove, and our refrigerator, and Electrolux. Yes, the Kilcoynes put these babies to the test. During the quarantine, the MVP at our house, the dishwasher, it got a workout. We've got big name brands we're talking about at a great price. St. Charles, Baldwin, Maplewood, South County, and in the city. The best bet, just get online. TheApplianceDiscounters.com. Our savings are your savings.
How cool for you, St. Louis kid, played hockey, CBC, you go to Northeastern, drafted by the Penguins, 234 career NHL games. When you're a kid on the rink, you might have been playing it. Hell, these guys are always at Afton at like midnight. Did you want to be Hully? I'm trying to think, because your age, you're younger than me. Who was your guy?
So 1985 I was born. I really started watching the Blues in the 90s. And you're right, Martin. I mean, everyone wanted to be Brett Hull. Everyone wanted to grow a mullet. Everyone wanted to have the golden Easton stick, the 2-piece that he had. I think Johnny Mack sold it for like $60. But back in 1992, that was like a fortune, because most sticks were like, $12, $13, those little Sherwood ones. And then that golden Brett stick came out, and everyone wanted to be that. Brett Hull, he did more for St. I would compare what he did to the hockey in St. Louis to what Wayne Gretzky did for hockey out in LA. And I mean that from the very bottom of my heart, because without Brett Hull, I don't know if the Blues are still here to this day. I mean, he had that much of an impact into this game. And not to mention, he still is. He's one of the most charismatic, kind, encouraging individuals. He's very involved still with the Blues, has plenty of appearances with the Blues, and he just brings out his personality. He is just so fun-loving, and people they love him. They love everything about him. So that was my guy. Brett Hull was my guy. We went to the old arena. My dad would take us to a game every now and then. But listen, he was a concrete guy, second generation from Sicily. He got up at 4 a.m. every day for work. So we went to those games at 8 o'clock at night. Martin, we were lucky if we stayed a period. I'm talking halfway through the first period. Some games, my dad would be like, all right, guys, you ready to go? We're like, Dad, we just got here. It's like, I know, but, we got to get up for work in the morning. I was like, oh. So we very rarely made it to the second period on any game for that matter. But it was Brett Hull. It was those old Blues jerseys. It was the old barn. That kind of got me really, really to fall in love with the sport of hockey as a kid.
Well, I got to tell you, you're a great storyteller. And when they hired you for the booth, I think a lot of people said no. Now, who's that? What? He played hockey. He didn't play for the Blues? Yeah. Oh, my God. They didn't hire a former player from St. Louis. What are they doing? I'm sure you walked into that job, especially because Kelly Chase did it for so long and was beloved. You had to be nervous, even though you're a professional athlete. How nervous were you walking into that job? And then give me an idea now, comfort level.
So be honest with you, Martin, I wasn't nervous at all because I didn't think I was going to get the job. You know, it was Andy Strickland who reached out to me and said, hey, there's this opportunity. I don't know if what you're doing right now, but they're looking for this color analyst for the radio. I'm like, oh, okay. He's like, if you want it, you want me to give you Chris Kerber's number? I was like, yeah, Martin, I had nothing going on. I was just retired. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And I looked at this like, well, we're going to the Oyster House, the old Oyster House downtown. I love oysters. Maybe it'll get me a free lunch. And the way I looked at it was, I'll probably get denied, but I'll be at the exact same spot I was 2 days ago. And that's how I approached the whole process. And it kept going and it kept moving. And then I found out, like, you know, a lot of great Blues alumni were up for this job that have already had the experience. And my wife's like, what do you think? I'm like, well, I'm not going to get it. But I literally approached it as if I'm really getting to know a lot of good people with the Blues. I'm getting to know Chris Kerber. I met Steve Chapman. I got to sit down with Chris Zimmerman. He sees my face. Maybe I can say something that'll spark something down the road. And hey, Joe, we have this opportunity, whatever. I looked at it like there's maybe another outlet somewhere, and I was just getting in front of people. And that's how I did approach it. You know, but then Curbs and I did a period, and I wasn't nervous because I told myself that I'm just going to be myself. I'm just gonna talk the way I talk. And if in the middle of the game I start talking about why men have nipples and the anatomy of a zygote and when a sperm, you know, meets an egg, then hell with it. I'm just going to talk about it because that's what I do. I just talk about that stuff. I just randomly in a conversation with friends, I'll just talk about the most random things. I've always been very curious and just random facts. And I've been curious about a lot of things in life that apply to hockey. So I had the little bit of the knowledge and the curiosity of all these connections with this sport. And I just let it go. And I think he appreciated that because at the end of the day, Martin, as you know, it's an entertaining business. We're here to make people laugh. We're here to make people smile. And we're here to bring light to this great game of hockey. So I think that's why he liked me. When I got the job, that's when I started getting nervous. I was like, oh my God. It's like almost like when I thought Donald Trump was just running for president just for publicity. And then he got to become the president. And he was like, oh shit, I'm the president. Now what the hell do I do? This is just how I approached it. But I was like, oh, I got the job. Like, oh my God, I gotta figure out how this job is. But luckily for me, I've always had good upbringing. My dad, you know, took me aside. He said, you want to be the best at anything? You got to learn from the best. You need a mentor. And that's good advice for anyone. If you want to do something great in this world and you have a direction and aspirations and a dream, if you want to be the best, you have to learn from the best. You have to pick the right teachers. And what I did was I reached out to Joe Buck and I reached out to Joe Micheletti. Joe Micheletti met me at the Shack, the restaurant in Frontenac, when I got this job. And he sat down with me. I felt terrible bugging him. He was only in town for 2 days. And he sat down with me and he sat down and he said, here's an envelope. This is for you. This is for later. I go, okay. So we talked, had a great breakfast, so much great advice. And to me, Joe Micheletti is the benchmark for color analysts. He is the greatest. He's the best in the game. So I wanted to learn from him. We had a great conversation. I get to the car, open this envelope, Martin. It is a 7-page yellow loose leaf handwritten letter about advice. Congratulations. Keep an eye on this. This is how I prepare for games. It was literally an entire breakdown of what Joe Micheletti does to prepare for Blues games. And to me, that's where it all began. I learned from the best, and I literally tried to spin it in my direction with my energy and my personality. And that's where I'm at right now. I have a lot of learning to do. I still stumble over words. I still miss calls. I still mispronounce players' names. That's just my personality. I talk very quickly. It's a very fast game. I grew up. I was one of 6 kids. I'm the grandson of Caesar and Josephine Vitale. We have like 18 million cousins. If you don't talk quick and you don't eat quick, you're not going to eat and you're not going to make your peace. You just have to speak quickly, which works well for me in hockey because it's a very fast game. And we're on the radio and I can't keep talking because people have no idea what the frick's going on in the game. Kerber's got to be the one talking. It's different than TV. So I think all those things kind of coming together are helping me groom into this. I'm around Darren Pang, which next to Joe Micheletti, Darren Pang is right there in my book. He's so prepared, so professional, and one of the best in the game as well. So being around good people was to me the biggest help. And again, I keep continuing to move that forward. I'm very comfortable now. I sit behind a mic. I really look forward to games. I look forward to calling games. I look forward to kind of twisting the game to help people understand. That's one thing Joe Micheletti always told me. He goes, explain the game on the radio like you're explaining it to kids. and it's really good advice because the majority of the people listening don't really know much about hockey. I don't want to go in there and talk about the 2-3 forecheck and how the defenseman pinched and then he sealed up the ozone layer. People have no idea what the hell you're talking about, right? You may know, and 1% of the listeners may know, but instead of saying that, oh, the D got caught. He pinched, he lost his guy, and then the team was, bam, gone the other way. That makes sense to a kid, and it makes sense to the common listener. So I have children. It's very easy for me to talk to kids and talk in relation to kids because that's all I do all day. I feel like I'm running a hotel in my house with this pandemic, or I'm running a hotel here, Martin. I find myself getting up early to prepare Eggs Benedict for the guests to come down. I'm fluffing towels. Pretty soon I'm going to be dropping mints off in their pillows. I mean, literally, it's just all I do all day is round up kids.
I picture you just saying, and maybe this is an Irish guy stereotyping the Italian guy. I just picture you saying, just grab some damn pasta. There's pasta in the fridge. And like, Dad, it's 6 a.m. I don't want freaking pasta. I just picture you eating pasta all day.
Hey, lunches were the time I got bullied the most in school. I'm going to tell you why. Because while most kids have peanut butter and jellies and snack packs and Ritz crackers, Martin, I had to deal with, hey, teach, where can I warm up my veal piccata? They got the microwave. You mind if I come in the teacher's lounge and warm up my veal piccata? I mean, that's what I grew up in. My mom and dad made veal piccata 3 days ago. We had 2 trays extra, and that's what you eat.
And then you started making bread, too. By the way, I hear Randy Carricker on 101 ESPN. I was, oh, fantastic. Thank you, sir. I've had some of the bread today. Joey brought the bread in. I keep hearing about the freaking bread. Nothing. CBC, Paisano, nothing. And I just keep hearing about the bread. When did that start?
Well, that's a long rabbit hole, Martin. And I'm going to give you the short version. I'm going to give you the short version because
the Zoom's going to run out. You're right.
They are going to run out. But so what happened was when I got injured, I became a narcoleptic through my concussions and my facial injuries. What happened was I was up all night, and I became almost very, very stir crazy. And what happened after that was, hold on one second, I'm going to close the car door. What happened after that was
you do play-by-play. Look at that.
Yeah, you see what I'm doing there? This is just, we're going on the go, buddy. This is the way life is. You know what I'm saying? So Martin, what happened was I'm up all night and I'm kind of going crazy. And what happened was that I needed a hobby. I needed something to keep me busy because I was losing my mind in bed. I was looking at walls and I couldn't stay focused on anything. And I was, for better or worse, going nuts. A lot of opioids were involved with my injury because of the facial fractures. And that kind of had a toll on my health. I just lost a lot of sleep. So I needed to decide, what the heck am I going to do to serve this time productively? And I've always loved bread. I always baked with my nana and my dad growing up. I thought, you know what, maybe all those ideas. So I started baking bread, and I got really into sourdough because the more I dove into it, I was like, I want to make the best bread. I want to make the bread they made thousands of years ago. So I cultivated my own yeast, and I did it all. And it was a process. It was chemistry. It was memory. It was mathematics. It was timing. Sourdough bread is so much timing and intuition. Now consider all those things. When you're considering the chemistry and the mathematics and timing and schedules and routine, when I'm doing that, guess what I'm not focused on anymore? I'm not focused on my own problems. I'm not focused on my injury. I'm not focused on my health, which was just tearing me down. It was a great distraction, and at the end of the day, it was amazing therapy. So that's I fell in love with it.
He's the bread man. He's a cadet, former Penguin. He's friends with Sidney Crosby, so I've been told. But also, he's a responsible driver. He got on the Bluetooth. I'm going to let you go, but one of the things I love about the broadcast, you and Kerber, you might talk about the Stooges. You might make a random Demi Moore joke. And then you told the Whitey Herzog Martini story. I don't know if your kids are in the car. Can you retell the Whitey Martini story? Because I laughed out loud, and I'm looking back at some old texts. I texted you about it on Saturday, November 30th at 10:30 at night. I should have been leaving you alone. I don't know if you can retell it, but I love it.
No, we were talking in the middle of the broadcast, and I think we were losing. This was at the early going. Remember when the Blues were terrible a couple years ago? And that was an entry into the job, learning from the hard knocks of that. So we were losing like 5-0, and we got on the story about baseball. I think the Cardinals were in the postseason, and we were talking about, I think, Mike Matheny and different coaches, and I got to talking about Whitey Herzog. Whitey Herzog was my neighbor. He grew up 2 doors down from me. My entire childhood, he still lives in that house. My parents are 2 doors down. So we got to talking, and he's like, "Oh, Whitey." I was like, "Oh yeah, Whitey still fishes every day, very active." And Curbs is just kind of like, "Oh, really? That's awesome." And I was like, "Yeah, he gets up at 4 or 5. I used to go fishing with him all the time, Curbs." He's like, "Oh yeah, pretty good advice from old Whitey. I bet he has a lot of good stories." I go, "Yeah, he's got some great stories. I learned at a very young age about alcohol." And he's like, "Okay, go on." So I went on. You asked me to go on, I will continue. I always kind of, I was sensitive, I touch and go, but if you want me to continue, I will. And I was 14 years old. I went fishing with Whitey Herzog. We're on the boat, and he's like, "Joey, you doing any of that boozing lately?" And I had no idea what he's talking about. I thought it was like a game. I was like, "Oh no, Whitey, I don't do that." He's like, "Okay, good. Let me tell you something. The Kings, those are the drinks. You can monitor the Kings, right? 1 and 2, and then all the Kings, whatever, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Now martinis a little different, Joey." And I didn't even know Martin. I had no idea what a martini was, and I had zero idea. His martinis are a little different. He's like, "Martinis are like women's breasts," and he's got my attention, right? He goes, "They're like women's breasts. 1's not enough, but 3's too many." And I'll never forget that. And you know what? 20 years later, I was at a wedding, and he's absolutely right. 3 is way too many.
Martinis, it is, of course, yes, for sure.
Of course, that's what we're talking about, right? Yeah.
Yes. Love that story. Great to catch up, talk some Blues hockey, but I also think for folks, most people have been paying attention, but a little bit about the background, how you ended up in that job. It's a lot of fun to hear you and Curbs together, and thanks for making some time.
Hey, Martin, anything for a good CBC cadet boy like yourself? We got to stick together. There's all those DeSmet and Sioux guys. I think they run this town, but they're wrong. We got to make sure we're sticking together. Brothers for life, my friend.
That means the bread must be in the mail.
Hey, we told you that'd be a lot of fun. What a great personality. Joey Vitale, a surprise pick to end up in the Blues booth, and what a great choice it was by the Blues. Chris Zimmerman, Steve Chapman, and you can just tell the passion there. There's a guy you want to have a beer with, a guy you might want to break bread with, quite literally. Joey Vitale, appreciate him checking in. Appreciate you checking us out. Make sure you get subscribed to iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. Get signed up. More and more hockey conversation over the coming weeks, and you never know who we'll check in with, whether it's Isaac Bruce, John Mozeliak, Gary Pinkel, any of the above. Get signed up. Make sure you subscribe. Chuck Marlowe, my guy, Martin and Marlowe, every Monday. The Kilcoyne Conversation, presented by Triad Bank, Marie Davila Senior Living, Appliance Discounters, and B&G Tuck Pointing. We'll talk to you again soon.